The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was bigger than most cities. Its walls were made of crystal that glowed with soft blue light. 12 different alien species sat in their special chairs, each one designed for their unique bodies. Some had tentacles, others had scales, and a few looked like walking rocks. They all had one thing in common today. They were angry. Ambassador Dongsu walked into the hall with 3 other humans. His black suit was simple and clean. Behind him came Admiral Hai Jin, wearing her dark blue military uniform with silver stars on her shoulders. Chief Diplomat Wu Bin carried a small computer pad, and Science Advisor Da He had her scanner device clipped to her belt. The humans looked small in the massive hall. Their skin was pale compared to the colorful aliens around them. But they walked with confidence, their heads held high. They took their seats at the center table and waited. Chancellor Thexmore of the Velkari Empire stood up first. He was tall and thin, with gray skin and 4 arms. His voice came through a translator box that made it sound cold and mechanical. "Humans of the Terran Federation," he said, "you have broken our laws. You have ignored our rules. Today, you will answer for your crimes." Dongsu did not speak. He folded his hands on the table and looked at the Chancellor with calm eyes. His team stayed quiet too. "The incident at Kepler 442b cannot be ignored," continued another alien. This one looked like a giant snake with arms. Her name was Veltara, and she spoke for the Shistari Empire. "You gave advanced technology to a primitive species without asking us first. This is against our most important law." More aliens began to speak. Each one had complaints about humans. They said humans had built colonies in places they should not have. They said humans shared their knowledge too freely. They said humans did not respect the old ways that had kept peace in the galaxy for thousands of years. Glix of the Morvaki hammered his 6 fists on his speaking platform. He was short and wide, covered in thick armor-like skin. "You humans think you are better than us," he shouted. "You act like our rules do not apply to you." The worst accusation came from a creature that looked like living crystal. "Humans refuse to share their consciousness transfer technology," it said in a voice like breaking glass. "They can live forever by copying their minds into computers. But they will not teach us how to do this." For 3 hours, the aliens took turns speaking against humanity. They listed every time humans had helped someone without permission. Every time humans had solved a problem in a new way. Every time humans had been kind to species that the Council thought were too primitive to matter. Through it all, the 4 humans said nothing. Dongsu watched each speaker carefully. Yejin kept her hands steady on the table, but her eyes were sharp like a hawk watching for danger. Wu Bin wrote notes on his computer pad, recording everything. Dahi used her scanner to measure the emotional stress levels of the alien speakers. "Why do you not defend yourselves?" demanded a floating creature covered in tentacles. "Do you admit your guilt?" Still, the humans stayed silent. As the day went on, the aliens grew more frustrated. They had expected the humans to argue, to make excuses, or to beg for forgiveness. Instead, they got silence. The humans listened to every word, but they did not respond. The crystal alien made a sound like wind chimes in a storm. "This silence is disrespectful. You must answer our charges." But Dongsu only nodded slightly, as if he understood what was being said. He did not argue or agree. He simply listened. When the session ended for the day, the aliens were confused and angry. They had spent hours explaining why humans were wrong, but the humans had not even tried to defend themselves. As the different species left the hall, they whispered to each other. "What are they planning?" asked one. "Maybe they know they are guilty," said another. "Or maybe they are preparing for war," whispered a third. The 4 humans packed their things slowly. They had recorded everything the aliens said. They had measured their stress levels and noted their body language. They had learned much about the aliens' fears, even though the aliens thought they were just complaining about human actions. As they walked out of the hall, other alien diplomats stared at them. The humans moved like they had a purpose, like they knew something the aliens did not. Their silence was not the silence of the guilty. It was the silence of people who had already made a decision. In their hotel that night, the humans finally spoke to each other. "They are afraid of us," Dahi said, looking at her scanner readings. "All of them. Even the warrior species. They want us to follow their rules," Wubin added. "But they cannot force us to do it. The question is," Hyejin said quietly, "what do we do now?" Dongsu looked out the window at the alien city below. Lights twinkled in strange colors and flying vehicles moved between tall buildings. It was beautiful, but it felt cold. "We listen," he said. "We listen to everything they have to say, and then we make our choice." The next morning, the council session began again. More aliens spoke against humanity. They demanded that humans follow the old rules. They wanted humans to stop helping primitive species. They wanted humans to share their best technology with the council. And still the humans said nothing. But their silence was beginning to feel different. It was not passive anymore. It felt like the quiet before a storm. The aliens could sense it, even if they did not understand what it meant. Something was changing, and the humans were not going to ask permission for what came next. 5 days passed, and still the humans said almost nothing. Each morning, Dongsu and his team returned to the council hall. Each day, more aliens stood up to complain about human actions, and each day the humans just listened. The aliens were getting frustrated. Some began to shout. Others made threats. A few even suggested that humans should be banned from the galaxy if they would not follow council rules. Far away from the council hall, Jinho sat in a secret room on the human diplomatic ship. His job was to watch and listen to alien communications. The computers around him showed data streams from across the galaxy. What he saw made him frown. The alien species were talking to each other in private. Species that had been enemies for centuries were suddenly working together. They were sharing military information. They were moving their warships to new positions. Most importantly, they were trying to figure out how to replace human technology. Jinho watched the data flow across his screens. The aliens had jump gates that let ships travel between stars quickly, but humans had designed and built most of these gates. The aliens had powerful computers, but they used human software. They had medical equipment that could heal almost any injury, but it needed human quantum consciousness technology to work properly. The aliens were realizing how much they needed humans, and it scared them. Back in the council hall, the complaints continued. Korthel of the Predator Guild was speaking now. He looked like a giant cat that walked on 2 legs with claws as long as knives. "Humans have made our young warriors soft," he growled. "They solve problems with words instead of fighting. This is not the natural way." An alien that looked like a walking tree swayed as it spoke. "Humans share knowledge freely. They do not make others pay high prices for information. This hurts our trade systems." The crystal alien chimed again. "They heal our sick without asking what we can give in return. They rescue our ships when they are in danger. They act like they are responsible for everyone in the galaxy." Dongsu found this interesting. The aliens were complaining that humans were too helpful. They were angry because humans solved problems and expected nothing in return. They wanted humans to be more selfish, more like them. On the 6th day, something changed. Hyejin received a message on her communication device during the session. She read it quickly, then showed it to the others. Dahi nodded. Wubin closed his computer pad with a soft click. Dongsu took a deep breath. The aliens were still talking. Chancellor Thexmore was explaining how humans had helped a dying species rebuild their planet. He made this sound like a terrible crime. Then Dongsu stood up. The entire hall went quiet. After days of silence, the human ambassador was finally going to speak. The aliens leaned forward in their seats. Some activated recording devices. Others called for their translators to pay close attention. Dongsu looked around the hall slowly. He made eye contact with each species representative. His voice was calm and clear when he finally spoke. "We have heard your concerns," he said. "We will tell our government what you have said." That was all. The aliens waited for more. They expected explanations, arguments, or promises to change. Instead, the humans began packing their things. "Wait!" shouted Glix, pounding his 6 fists. "Again? That is all you have to say? We have spent days explaining your crimes, and you just say you will tell your government?" Dongsu picked up his briefcase. "We have nothing more to say to this council." "But what about our demands?" Veltara hissed. "What about following our laws? What about sharing your technology?" added the crystal alien. Dongsu walked toward the exit. His team followed behind him. Their footsteps echoed in the suddenly quiet hall. "You cannot just leave," Korthal roared. "We are not finished. With you." At the door, Dongsu stopped. He did not turn around, but his voice carried clearly across the hall. "Yes," he said quietly. "You are." Then the humans were gone. The aliens sat in shocked silence. They had expected many things, but not this. The humans had not argued. They had not apologized. They had not agreed to follow council rules. They had simply listened, acknowledged what was said, and left. After the humans were gone, the aliens began talking all at once. Some were angry, some were confused. A few seemed worried. "What do you think they will do?" asked one. "Maybe their government will force them to obey us, said another. "Or maybe they are preparing for war," whispered a third. But deep down, many of the aliens were beginning to feel something they had not expected. Fear. They had pushed the humans to respond, and the humans had responded by walking away. This was not what the aliens had wanted. They had wanted the humans to submit, to follow orders, to stay and be controlled. Instead, the humans had shown that they did not need the council's approval for anything. On their ship, the human team prepared to leave the council station. Jin Ho brought his data to show them what he had learned. The alien species were more dependent on human help than anyone had realized. They used human technology for almost everything important in their daily lives. "They think they were punishing us," Dahi said, looking at the data. "But they were really showing us how much power we have." "Power we never wanted," Wu Bin added quietly. "But power we have nonetheless," He-Jin said. "The question is, what do we do with it?" Dongsu looked out at the council station growing smaller as their ship pulled away. "We go home," he said, "and we let them figure out what they really want." As their ship jumped to faster than light speed, the aliens were still arguing in the council hall. They did not yet understand that everything was about to change. The humans had walked away in silence, but that silence was about to speak louder than any words they could have used. 2 days after the human delegation left the council station, strange things began to happen across the galaxy. Human ships that had been working at mining stations packed up and left. Human scientists at research facilities said goodbye to their alien colleagues and headed home. Human traders closed their shops and canceled their contracts. Tae-young sat in his office on Earth, looking at reports from across human space. As Director of Colonial Affairs, it was his job to coordinate the withdrawal. The orders had come from the highest levels of government. All non-essential human operations outside of human territory were to shut down immediately. The language in the official notices was polite and professional. Due to changing political circumstances, the Terran Federation is ending its current agreements. We thank our partners for their cooperation and wish them well in their future endeavors. But the results were anything but polite. On the mining, world of Kepler 186F, the entire rare earth mineral operation ground to a halt when the human workers left. The Velkari had depended on those minerals for their advanced electronics. Without them, their computer systems would start failing within months. At the Rigel research station, alien scientists watched in confusion as their human colleagues dismantled equipment and loaded it onto transport ships. Dr. So-young, the station's head of communications, explained to her alien friends that all research data belonging to humans would be transferred to Federation facilities. "But we were working together," protested Ziktar, a Sistari scientist. "Our projects are only half finished." "You are welcome to continue the work," So-young replied, "but you will need to do it without human participation or human technology." The alien scientists stared at the empty laboratories. Most of the advanced equipment was leaving with the humans. The remaining instruments were older alien models that were much less capable. Across the galaxy, the same scene played out hundreds of times. Human-operated space stations shut down their services. Human-maintained navigation beacons went dark. Human-staffed medical facilities closed their doors to non-human patients. The aliens had not realized how much they depended on human infrastructure. For decades, humans had quietly taken over many of the galaxy's essential services. They had done it so smoothly and helpfully that the aliens had stopped thinking about it. Bin-Ho worked frantically at his computer, trying to calculate the economic impact. As Earth's top economic analyst, he was watching the galactic economy collapse in real time. His numbers were staggering. 73% of interstellar trade relied on human-operated facilities. 68% of the galaxy's medical equipment needed human maintenance. 81% of faster-than-light communication went through human-built relay stations. The humans had not set out to control these things. They had simply been efficient and helpful. When aliens needed something done, humans had stepped forward to help. Over time, the aliens had come to rely on this help without thinking about it. Now the help was gone. On the alien world of Proxima 3, the local government was panicking. Their main spaceport was operated entirely by humans. When the human staff left, ships could not land safely. Food deliveries from off-world stopped. Medical supplies ran out. The planetary governor sent desperate messages to the Galactic Council. Send us replacement workers immediately. Our people will starve without the spaceport. But the Council had no one to send. They had allowed humans to handle so many jobs that they had forgotten how to do them themselves. Yu-Jin discovered something even more troubling at her research station in deep space. While analyzing alien communications, she found evidence of a secret project called Operation Independence. The 12 Council species were trying to reverse engineer human technology. Their progress was pathetic. After months of work, they had managed to copy a few simple human tools. The advanced technology that really mattered, quantum consciousness transfer, efficient fusion reactors, and instantaneous communication systems, was far beyond their understanding. The aliens had estimated it would take them 200 to 400 years to develop equivalent technology on their own. In the meantime, their civilizations were falling apart. The withdrawal was not just about economics or technology. It was about knowledge and expertise that could not be easily replaced. Human doctors who understood alien biology were leaving hospitals. Human engineers who maintained complex systems were packing up their tools. Human diplomats who had helped resolve conflicts between species were going home. Su-Jin, who studied alien psychology, watched the situation with fascination and growing concern. The alien species were not handling the crisis well. Old rivalries that had been dormant for centuries were flaring up again. Without human mediators to help solve disputes, the Velkari and Sistari had started fighting over mining rights in the Vega system. The proud Morvaki were threatening war against anyone who tried to take over their trade routes. The crystalline Torvek had withdrawn to their home systems and refused to communicate with anyone. The Galactic Council still met, but their sessions were chaotic. Instead of working together to solve problems, the species were blaming each other for the crisis. Some accused the Velkari of pushing the humans too hard. Others blamed the Sistari for making too many demands. Hyun-ji monitored their communications from a listening post at the edge of human space. The alien messages were becoming desperate and paranoid. Where did the humans go? One transmission asked. Are they preparing for war? Wondered another. What if they never come back? Feared a third. The most revealing message came from a private, Velkari military channel. We thought human compliance meant they were weak. We were wrong. Their silence was not submission. It was the quiet of a predator that no longer sees us as worth fighting. But the humans were not preparing for war. They were simply going about their business in their own territory. Human colonies expanded. Human research continued. Human trade flourished, but only between human worlds. The galaxy beyond human space was learning to function without human help. It was not going well. Jae Sung briefed the Federation leadership on alien military movements. 3 species had declared emergency powers in their home systems. The Predator Guild was conscripting every able-bodied citizen, apparently preparing for an invasion that would never come. Most desperately, several alien groups had tried to raid abandoned human facilities, hoping to steal technology they could use. These attempts failed completely. Human installations had security protocols the aliens had never suspected. When abandoned, the facilities simply destroyed themselves, rather than allow their technology to be captured. The aliens were learning a harsh lesson. They had become dependent on human generosity, and generosity could be withdrawn as easily as it had been given. As the 3rd month of withdrawal began, the galaxy was changing in ways no one had expected. The humans had not fired a single shot or made a single threat. They had simply stopped helping, and that was enough to transform everything. 6 months had passed since the humans left the Council Station. The galaxy was no longer the same place it had been before. What had once been a stable network of cooperating civilizations was now a collection of struggling, frightened worlds. Su Jin spent her days studying intercepted alien communications from her office in the Federation Intelligence Division. As a xenopsychologist, she had always been fascinated by how different species thought and behaved. Now she was watching an entire galactic civilization fall apart, and it was both terrifying and educational. The alien species were not handling their new reality well. The Velkari Empire, which had been the most vocal in demanding human compliance, was now facing internal rebellion. Their outer colonies had declared independence after the central government could no longer provide basic services. Without human-operated supply lines, food and medicine were not reaching distant worlds. Chancellor Thexmore, who had led the charges against humanity in the Council, was now desperately trying to hold his empire together. His private messages, which Federation intelligence monitored regularly, showed a leader in complete panic. The human withdrawal was not a retreat, he had told his advisors in a recorded meeting. It was a trap. They let us attack them because they knew we could not survive without them. But Su Jin knew this was not true. The humans had not planned this outcome. They had simply responded to hostility by removing themselves from the situation. The aliens' dependence on human help was their own doing, built up over decades of choosing convenience over self-reliance. The Sistari Empire was suffering even worse problems. Their entire military fleet was stranded in distant systems because they had no way to refuel without human-operated stations. Veltara, the snake-like representative who had been so angry at humans, was now begging other species for help. Her desperate transmission had been intercepted 3 days ago. Any species with functioning fuel production, please respond. We will pay any price for assistance. Our ships cannot return home without your help. No one had replied. Every species was dealing with their own crisis. Hyunji coordinated the monitoring efforts from a massive listening post hidden in an asteroid field. The amount of alien communication had increased dramatically since the human withdrawal, and most of it was bad news. The crystalline Torvek had gone completely dark. Their cities were failing because the power systems needed regular maintenance that only human engineers had known how to perform. The last transmission from their home world had been a simple message: "We are returning to the deep caves. Do not look for us." The proud Morvaki warriors were facing their own humiliation. Their entire culture was built around conquest and strength, but now they could not even maintain their own equipment. Their weapons needed human-made components to function properly. Their ships required human-designed navigation systems to travel between stars. Korthal, the Predator Guild leader, had sent increasingly angry messages to anyone who would listen, but his anger was now mixed with something that sounded like fear. The humans knew this would happen. They made us weak on purpose. This was their plan all along. But the humans had no plan beyond protecting themselves. They were simply living their lives in their own space, completely unaware that their former alien neighbors were collapsing. The most tragic case was the Peaceful Healing Collective, a Yazonker species that had dedicated themselves to medicine and helping others. They had worked closely with humans for generations, sharing knowledge and techniques. Now their hospitals were closing because they could not operate the advanced equipment that humans had helped them build. Their leader, an entity called the Great Healer, had sent a message that broke Sujin's heart. "We saved so many lives working with the humans. Now we watch our own people die because we forgot how to heal without their tools." Gi-hun analyzed the military situation from his position as Earth's senior strategic analyst. The news was both good and bad for humanity. The good news was that no alien species was capable of mounting a serious attack on human space. Their militaries were too busy dealing with internal problems. The bad news was that the galaxy was descending into chaos, and chaos had a way of spreading. 3 minor wars had already started. The Velkari outer colonies were fighting their former government. 2 species were battling over the ruins of a collapsed trade route. The Morvaki had attacked a neighboring system, apparently trying to steal resources to keep their own civilization running. The Galactic Council still met, but their sessions were nothing like the organized proceedings of the past. Representatives shouted at each other, made threats, and walked out in anger. The elegant Crystal Hall had become a place of desperation and blame. From intercepted recordings, Gi-hun had learned that the council was now discussing extreme measures. Some representatives wanted to declare war on humanity and try to force them to return. Others suggested surrendering completely and begging for human forgiveness. A few, led by the remaining rational voices, were trying to organize a coalition to rebuild galactic civilization without human help. But these efforts were failing because no species trusted each other anymore. Centuries of rivalry and competition had been held in check by human mediation. Without that stabilizing influence, old hatreds were returning. The most revealing conversation had been recorded just 2 weeks ago. It was a private meeting between several species leaders, and the fear in their voices was obvious even through the translators. "How long can we survive like this?" one had asked. "Our best scientists estimate 50 to 100 years before complete collapse," another had replied. "Unless the humans return," a third voice had added quietly. "They will never return," came the bitter response. "We pushed them too far. We thought we were superior, but we were only superior as long as they supported us." The conversation had ended in silence, which somehow seemed appropriate. Yujin made a discovery that changed everything. While analyzing the alien communication patterns, she found something unexpected. A new group was emerging from the chaos, the Cathani, the same primitive species that had caused the original conflict with the Council. The humans had been accused of illegally uplifting the Cathani by sharing technology and knowledge, but the Cathani had learned differently than the other species. Instead of becoming dependent on human help, they had absorbed human teachings and made them their own. Now, as the galaxy collapsed around them, the Cathani were offering help to their former overlords. They had working power systems, functional medical facilities, and most importantly, they remembered how to solve problems instead of just complaining about them. The irony was not lost on the human observers. The species that the Council had wanted to keep primitive were now the most advanced civilization in their region. Some of the failing alien governments had begun quietly requesting help from the Cathani. Others were too proud to ask for assistance from a species they had looked down on for millennia. But change was coming whether the old powers wanted it or not. The galaxy was reshaping itself, and the humans who had started this transformation were nowhere to be seen. They had walked away. In silence, and in that silence, they had revealed the truth about power, dependence, and the cost of taking kindness for granted. 1 year had passed since the humans walked away from the Galactic Council. The galaxy had changed completely, and most of the changes were not good for the alien species who had demanded human obedience. Captain Min Young stood on the bridge of her exploration ship, the New Horizon, watching a dead world through the viewing screen. This had once been a major Torvek colony, home to millions of crystalline beings. Now it was dark and silent, its crystal cities cracked and empty. "Life support failed 8 months ago," reported her science officer. "The power grid was too complex for them to maintain without human engineers." Min Young nodded sadly. The Torvek had been proud of their beautiful crystal technology, but they had never learned how to repair it themselves. They had always called human engineers when something broke. When the humans left, the Torvek had slowly lost the ability to keep their own civilization running. "Any survivors?" she asked. "Possibly. Our sensors detect some activity in the deep cave systems. They may have retreated underground." This was happening across the galaxy. Species that had seemed powerful and advanced were discovering that their power had depended on human support. Without that support, they were reverting to more primitive ways of life, if they survived at all. Yunho was having a very different experience on the other side of the galaxy. As Earth's new ambassador to the Kethani Federation, he was watching a civilization bloom while others withered. The Kethani had learned well from their human teachers, but instead of becoming dependent, they had adapted human knowledge to their own needs and capabilities. They had built sustainable technologies that they could maintain and improve on their own. "We remember what the humans taught us," explained Kethani leader Mordak during their weekly meeting. "They showed us how to learn, not just what to learn. That made all the difference." Now the Kethani were the strongest power in their region of space. Other species were coming to them for help, including some that had once treated them as primitives. The reversal was remarkable and somewhat amusing. "The Velkari contacted us yesterday," Mordak continued. "They want to trade technology for food supplies. The same Velkari who once called us barely sentient creatures now need our help to survive." Yunho was not surprised. The reports from across the galaxy told the same story everywhere. The alien species had built their civilizations on a foundation of human assistance, and when that foundation was removed, everything had collapsed. Back on Earth, Gihan was preparing his final report on the galactic situation. As senior strategic analyst, he had watched the entire crisis unfold. His conclusions were stark, but not entirely without hope. "Most council species have approximately 50 years before total societal collapse," he wrote. "However, adaptation rates vary significantly. Species that are learning to cooperate with each other and accept help from new sources have better survival chances." The Morvaki were actually doing better than expected. Their warrior culture had made them more adaptable to hardship. They were learning to build and maintain their own equipment again, even if it was less advanced than what they had before. The Sistari were struggling but surviving by forming alliances with smaller species. They offered military protection in exchange for resources and technical knowledge. The Velkari Empire had effectively ceased to exist. The remaining Velkari settlements were scattered and isolated, each one trying to survive on its own. Some had joined with other species. A few had even applied to become part of the growing Kethani Federation. But the most significant development was not political or military. It was psychological. The aliens had stopped being afraid of what humans might do to them. Instead, they were afraid of what they were doing to themselves. Su Jin documented this change in her latest psychological analysis report. "The shift in alien attitudes is remarkable," she wrote. "They no longer see humans as a threat to be controlled. They now understand that humans were a resource they drove away through their own arrogance." Evidence of this change came in the form of messages that were beginning to reach human space. They were not demands or threats like before. They were requests. Sometimes they were even apologies. The first message had come from a small Velkari colony 6 months ago. "We understand that we were wrong about humans. We would like to discuss trade agreements if you are willing." More messages followed. Each one was humble and respectful. Each one acknowledged that the aliens had made mistakes. Each one asked for a second chance, but the messages went unanswered. The human government had decided on a policy of complete non-engagement with the former council species. They would neither help nor harm the aliens. They would simply ignore them and focus on their own civilization. This silence was perhaps more powerful than any response could have been. It showed the aliens that humans did not need them, did not fear them, and were not particularly interested in their problems. Jinho continued monitoring alien communications from his intelligence post. The conversations he intercepted had changed dramatically over the past year. Where once there had been anger and demands for human compliance, now there was mostly sadness and regret. "We had everything," one recent transmission had said. "The easy humans gave us prosperity, security, and knowledge. All they asked in return was to be allowed to help others too. And we threw it away because we were afraid of their generosity." Another message had been even more direct. The humans did not defeat us with weapons or threats. They defeated us by showing us who we really were without their help. We were nothing but parasites, and when the host left, we began to die. Not all aliens felt this way, of course. Some still blamed humans for the galaxy's problems. Some still believed that humans had planned the collapse as an act of revenge. But these voices were becoming fewer and quieter as time passed. The truth was becoming impossible to deny. The aliens had created their own problems by driving away the people who had been helping them. He, who had been part of the original delegation to the council, was now working on something completely different. As a senior research scientist, she was studying reports from the collapsed alien worlds to understand what had gone wrong. Her research had practical implications. Humanity was still expanding, still meeting new species, still offering help to those who needed it, but now they were being more careful about creating dependency. "We need to teach self-reliance, not just provide solutions," she wrote in her recommendations. "Help others become strong, not just help them with immediate problems." It was a lesson learned from the catastrophe that had befallen the galaxy. As the second year of separation began, the new reality was becoming clear. The galaxy would survive, but it would be very different. Some species would adapt and grow stronger. Others would fade into history. The humans would continue to expand and explore, but they would be more selective about who they helped and how they helped them. They had learned that kindness without wisdom could be as destructive as cruelty. And somewhere in the vast emptiness of space, the abandoned council station still orbited its dead star. Its crystal halls were dark and empty now, a monument to the day when fear had driven away the galaxy's greatest benefactors. The humans had walked away in silence, leaving the council to drown in their own fear. That fear had proven to be as dangerous as they had always believed humans to be. The only difference was that the danger had come from within themselves, not from the humans they had driven away. In the end, the greatest threat to galactic civilization had not been human power, but the aliens' inability to recognize the difference between strength and dependence, between control and cooperation, between pride and wisdom. The galaxy was learning these lessons now, but the tuition had been higher than anyone could have imagined.